So now we're going to finish up C, curves. So we've worked in C, we've done adjustment, CMYK, we watched color and brushes, we performed color balance. Now we're going to look at curves. I like curves, I use them frequently. There is also a handout in here if you'd prefer to read along about curves. Let's just open up a few of these. We're going to start with some of these. We're going to open up into Photoshop. And let me grab some of these down here. If you notice, most of these are PSD files. And I grab them. Little pesky learn files. Okay, so open with Adobe Photoshop 2020. All right, so the ones, now that I've gotten these open, the ones I'm going to work with first. And if you notice the way that these are named, it kind of tells you what we're going to do with them. So, this particular one here, we're just going to fix with curves. So it says curves fix. We're going to go into a adjustment layer. So I've got my layer here. I'm going to pick an adjustment layer for curves, which is this S curve here. And it comes up in my properties. We're going to apply, now if you notice, this is an RGB image, and it says RGB right here. If it wasn't RGB, if it was CMYK, and I went into adjustment layer for curves, it would now say CMYK right here. So a basic curve to put on an image, this image isn't bad, but it's a little flat in the areas where we would like to punch it up a little bit in color. A basic S curve will add a little drama to it, so that's pulling up just a little bit in height, pulling down just a little bit right here. And if you notice where you tug on certain areas, makes it lighter or darker. There are also these eyedroppers. The light one is for highlights, the medium one is for midtones, the dark one is for shadows, and you can try those out as well to see what they do. So if I go to a really dark space on here with the shadow, I've got the black eyedropper. You can see what happens if I click on the darkest areas with some color. It doesn't really lighten it up that much. It is changing a little bit. I'm going to go to midtones. Woo! Because I'm not in a color channel, it makes it a little crazy. And with the light, I'm going to go to the whitest thing on the page and click it and see what happens there. It adjusts it based on that. But once again, probably our safest curve to do here is a little bit of an S curve. And that sort of lightens and brightens. So that is how just curves works in adjustment layer. Now on this particular one, it says we're going to use CMYK curves. So I'm not going to use curves on the whole thing, just in certain areas. I want to brighten this flower in front. Oh, no. There it is. So I'm going to use curves in my adjustment layer. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the next one, the CMYK curves. This is the curves of the mask. So I'm going to add a mask. I don't want to lighten the dirt. If you see overall, it's lightening this dirt and it looks really sparkly. That's not what I want to do. I really just wanted to lighten the part of this flower. I guess it's, so I'm going to use the brush. There it is. The brush and quick mask. just to quickly paint this. I'm going to use a really big brush so it doesn't take so long. Here for just a minute, I'm just going to select it, and you can see how I'm just going to lighten the areas of. Remember, if you mess up, you toggle the color for whites in front when you're on a quick mask, and that will clean that up. So I'm just going to quickly paint this particular flower. We want it to punch up the color quite a bit. I've got to erase some things really quickly. I'm doing this super fast, so you don't have to sit here and watch me paint. I'm just going to clean up these areas. Because we don't want the dirt to look sparkly. Okay, so now when I click my quick mask again, I'm going to use a curve just on these areas here. Let me apply it again. So I'm going to use a curve, and it's only going to perform it. See what comes up when I add the curve? It's just going to perform it in the area that I have highlighted with my quick mask. So I'm going to lighten it and darken it, and it can get a lot of drama without having to color that dirt differently. I can also go down into, if I just want to work on the reds, I can really punch those up. And that is how you can have a curve with the mask. Okay, so now we're going to do CMYK caves. So this particular image here is in CMYK, and it is all blue. We're going to use curves to give this a little bit of color that doesn't look so washed out blue. So image adjustment, we're going to go into our adjustment layers, and we're going to use curves so it sets that new layer on top. I'm actually going to go into the cyan layer this time, and I'm just going to move the curve in the cyan and see if I can bring that color space so it looks a little different mostly in that space. And you can see the before and after. So this particular image is a little bit washed out. We're going to use curves for some contrast. So I'm going to use my adjustment layer for curves, and see if we get some darkest darks. Now I'm going to use this highlighter for the white on the lightest parts and the shadow one in the darkest parts, and we get, whoa, that's a much bigger improvement. If you toggle the eyeball on and off, you see, wow, what a big difference.